I haven't spoken very much on this podcast about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a very interesting figure to emerge to challenge Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination for 2024. There's an article in the New Yorker by the editor, David Remnick, with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And what strikes me as I look at the article in some detail is the contrast between Remnick's pathetic efforts to portray Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as a kook and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. coming across as an inquisitive, interesting, experienced guy, somebody certainly worth considering. Now, I'm not going to vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is, as he makes pretty clear in the interview, he's definitely a Democrat. On a wide range of issues, if you made a list of 10 issues, he's probably a Democrat on 7 of them. But he's on the other hand, independent-minded on some critical issues, including COVID, including the vaccine, the origins of COVID, censorship, and even to some degree on the trans issue. Now, a lot of this article is aimed at trying to show that he is a, quote, conspiracy theorist. And this phrase is bandied about so much that it's worth noting that this phrase would be damning. You're a conspiracy theorist only if conspiracies did not exist. But will anyone claim that there are no conspiracies in the world? There's no such thing as a conspiracy. Obviously, every organized crime is a conspiracy. There's conspiracy, for example, to have censorship in digital platforms. And this is, in my view, the government says we are pursuing a, quote, all government approach. That's their phrase. In other words, all the different organs of government come together and conspire. Conspire simply means meet and collude and work together to achieve this goal. So the point is that the conspiracy theories are an attempt to make sense of a peculiar, a bizarre, and unexplained situation. They may be right, they may be wrong, but you can't invalidate them simply by chanting conspiracy theory. You have to look at the merits of what is being said. So let's look at the merits of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The article has a lot of sarcasm. He's, quote, MAGA adjacent. And all they mean by MAGA adjacent is that there are people on the right, including Trump, including Alex Jones, including a few others, who have praised Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to which he rightly goes, so what? He goes, they agree with me on certain things, and he goes, I'm not going to repudiate them. He goes, I'm actually going to try to find common ground where I can. In other words, an eminently sensible position, and yet you have the kind of sputtering outrage of David Remnick. He says things like, but why do you think Donald Trump admires you? Are you not suspicious of that? And basically, what strikes me is Robert F. Kennedy's coolness, his savoir-faire, is basically like, why should I be? He goes, you know what? My job is not to drive people apart. And then this line crushing to the New Yorker, what do you think is worse, the White House using the FBI to censor political dissenters or whatever Trump has done? So here's RFK Jr. basically saying that the left is worse than Trump. I mean, you couldn't make a bigger insult to these guys, and you can see why they hate him and they want to push him off the pedestal for the Democratic nomination. They go on to talk about the fact that he is a different kind of Democrat, to which Robert F. Kennedy Jr. goes, yeah, quote, I'm a Kennedy Democrat. I believe in labor unions. I believe in a strong, robust middle class. I believe in racial justice, in policies that actually help the lowest people on the low totem pole. So then David Remnick goes, well, isn't Biden trying to do that? And Kennedy goes, well, why do you do the lockdowns? Lockdowns robbed $4 trillion from the middle class and the poor in this country and transferred it to the super rich. I mean, indisputable, right? The New Yorker has to contradict this, so they throw in the $4 trillion figure was likely an estimate for the price of the federal bailout. Well, yeah, so many of the 500 billionaires he seems to refer to rose up in other countries, especially China. Think about it. It only strengthens Robert F. Kennedy's point. You're making billionaires, and they're not even billionaires in America. They're billionaires all over the world, and especially in China. So this is a robbery of the lower middle class. And then David Remnick goes, are you trying to say that the Biden administration deliberately caused this effect? And Kennedy Jr. goes, no, I think that they made mistakes, which disqualifies them from continuing to do the job. In other words, if you're such a bumbling incompetent and you produce such bad results with your policies, do you mean the pilot intended to crash the plane? No, but he did crash the plane, and that means he's not really qualified to be a pilot. So this is the point. So as I read all this, I sort of feel from a distance a certain admiration for this kind of guy. I also agree with sentiments that he echoes, which, by the way, would come out of early Obama. I think the kind of tribalism you're advocating is poisonous to our country. I think it's toxic. So here's Kennedy willing to talk back to the New Yorker, do something that we are generally familiar more with Trump for doing, which is blame the media directly. You're part of the problem, my friend. He goes, I believe in an America without censorship, an America that fights for our Constitution, America that has moral authority around the world, that projects economic power around the globe rather than military violence. So all of this is actually a throwback to an earlier Democratic Party that clearly is no more. So Robert F. Kennedy is a kind of anomaly. He's in a party that where he doesn't really belong. He's not a Republican either. So he's in a sort of political no man's land. So I continue to find him interesting not as a genuine alternative, but interesting as a trenchant critic of leftist orthodoxy and the horror show that today's Democratic Party has become.